Welcome, everyone, to the Rant Podcast and webcast. And wow. Hi, Jacob. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How about you?
I'm doing good. Cubs are hot. Cubs are red hot. It's funny how things work in baseball, right? Over 162 games. And obviously, we're just at the beginning of that. But, the Dodgers series, that felt like it was years ago. And they lost 2 games and they never were really in those games. And they were playing against a very good team, too. Probably the best team in all of baseball, maybe the best team ever.
Yeah.
And then they played the Diamondbacks, and that was kind of a bumpy series. They split the series. They really had a chance to take 3 in that series. There were some pitching issues for sure. And and Sunday wasn't very fun when they gave up 8 runs in the 8th inning after having a lead. And then we fast forward to Oakland, Sacramento actually, and here the Cubs are in Sacramento, and they've scored some runs. A lot of runs, 35.
Our offense, all of a sudden, we went from the game on Sunday, which was just demoralizing and awful, and we want to forget about that. And all of a sudden, we're scoring 10 runs a game. And so it went from, you had Sunday where we lost that lead and we gave up 8 runs in an inning, and season's over, hopes are lost. All of a sudden, we score 18 runs. And it's like, okay, pick a lane. Are we going to blow leads every game, or are we going to score every game? Clearly, we would rather it be the latter, but that's a pretty drastic change.
Well, and they gave up quite a few runs in the series. Not relatively speaking, when the Cubs score 35 runs. If you're going to score 35 runs in three games, you're probably going to win at least 2 of them, you would hope. And the Cubs scored 18, 7, and 10,
yes,
if I'm right. And but they still ended up giving up some runs, right? Let's see what they gave up: 3, and then 4. When the 3 and 2, I think, and then 4. Is that right?
Yes.
Or maybe it's the other way around. I don't have the final scores here in front of me.
We outscored them 35-9. We ended up giving up 9 total, which puts us over 500. So even after, like you said, the Dodgers series was just demoralizing. Is a word that I've already used a few times, but the beginning of the season was really demoralizing. And then all of a sudden, like I said, the pitching staff finally settled in, whether it's starters. The bullpen didn't give up a single run this inning. And so, scoring 35 runs, like you said, they only gave up 9. That's often a recipe for success, whether it's 2 or 3 wins in the series.
And so let's see, I'm just looking right now. The Cubs have scored 60 runs. Now, granted, they do have 2 additional games there. But that leads all of baseball by quite a few runs, actually. And they didn't really score many runs in Tokyo. So,
they didn't.
For what it's worth, the Cubs right now have scored 60 runs. And the next closest, I think it's maybe the Cardinals, surprisingly. They have scored 42 runs. Cardinals are 4-2, respectable for now. I expect them to completely collapse soon.
Yes.
Apparently their fans do too.
Yeah, no, I was at the Cardinals game on Saturday against the Twins. Vibes were about as low as I've ever seen it in Busch Stadium. Since I'm closer to there than Chicago, I do make it out there at least a few times a year. Mainly for the food, because the food at Busch Stadium is fantastic. But the whole left field, outfield, empty. All of the third baseline, empty. And it's 2 minutes before the game time. It's opening weekend. It's a Saturday day game at a 1:10 start time. You figure Saturday, 1:10. I had someone in my replies saying, oh, yeah, it's a school night. No, it's not. It was a night game, and it was on a Saturday. Peak Busch, you're going to be sold out, because as much as I dislike the team, their fans, when they're really good, will show up, and that place can get rocking. It was dead. It didn't matter if the Cardinals ended up winning 5-1. It didn't matter. They've gotten off to a better start than I was expecting. Like you said, I don't expect it to continue. It probably won't. But the Cubs have scored 21 more runs than the Dodgers, and they've played They played 2 more games as of now. So, you could say it's a little bit of that, but are the Dodgers really going to score 20 runs in 2 games? I mean, they could. It's the offense has really exploded. And like you said, they didn't do anything in Tokyo, which makes it even more impressive, the amount of offense we've seen, especially in these last 3 games.
Well, first off, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that you said you only go to Busch Stadium for the food, not for the baseball. That was well played. And next, yes. There's a lot to be excited about coming out of Oakland after the Cubs have played in what is clearly going to be a hitter's park. It's going to be real interesting to see at the end of the season how many runs that ballpark gives up, because I'm guessing it's going to be a lot, and the Oakland A's aren't a very good team. And so they're going to have some teams come in there and steamroll them. And I'm assuming they play the Yankees at that stadium. That should be fun. Yeah, that'll be fun. And it'll be very, very interesting to watch how that develops. So I don't want to get too over the top over this series win, but it was fun. We needed some fun, particularly after the Dodgers series and then after that meltdown on Sunday. Thank goodness. Let's talk about some of the individual performances that happened over this 3-game set. Some pretty impressive numbers when we start to look at it. I mean, the 2 guys that stand out are Kyle Tucker and Seiya Suzuki. Both had monster series. Both have just really established themselves in this series as like these big bats. Both had multiple home runs. Suzuki had 3, Tucker had 2. Let's say Tucker his average was 462. Suzuki was 467. I mean, Suzuki drove in 9 runs in this series, and wow, just really impressive. And I mean, what do you think about those guys?
Well, aside from the hits and the average that you were talking about, they were drawing their walks too. Tucker drawing walks. Suzuki's still striking out a little bit. That has always concerned me. His not lack of feel of the strike zone, because he does understand the strike zone. But my problem with Suzuki is he either looks locked in and like the best hitter on the planet, or he looks like he has no feel for his bat and he's swinging at a baseball at his head. So it's either 520-foot home run, or I'm going to swing at this slider about 10 seconds early before the ball is even out of the pitcher's hand. But this series wasn't the case. Tucker home run in 4 straight games. Suzuki had a home run yesterday, one of the most impressive home runs I've ever seen. It was right away, no doubter, 445 feet off the batter's eye in center field. Center fielder barely moved. They just looked and was like, oh, that's an absolute nuke. And then today he hits 2 more, another 3-run home run, and then a solo home run as well. So they're both hot. And he had another single. So they're both hot. Tucker didn't have a hit today, but he walked at twice. I think every single, especially that first game, every single Cubs batter reached base twice. The team's working cohesively. They're working as a unit. It's not just one guy of, hey, we won, but only because one guy had 6 RBIs. No, they're all getting 6 RBIs. Like, they're all hitting. It's a unit. They're keeping the line going. Marquis even mentioned it with Ian Happ. Happ didn't have a hit the first 2 nights of the series, and he had 2 today. But either way, he's getting on base, and Boog said he keeps the line moving, even if he's in a slump and can't get any hits, because he was not lifting the ball at all. It was ground ball and weak contact after weak contact, but he was drawing walks, or they were 8-pitch at-bats. So either way, even if he's not getting a hit, he's either working the count, getting a walk, moving the batter over, or all 3.
Well, I'm not worried about Ian Happ. That's the last guy in the world I'd ever be worried about. And so I was kind of actually encouraged by the fact that the Cubs are scoring so many runs, and they're what has been in the most recent years, their most consistent and best bat, Ian Happ, wasn't really part of it. And I mean, but that is very encouraging when you start thinking about like how this offense can gel and how many runs these guys are going to be able to put up. I mean, Dansby Swanson had a home run. Carson Kelly had a home run and hit for an improbable cycle. The guy going into this series, the guy in his career since 2016 only had 2 triples.
Yeah. Well,
I thought he was going to fall down when he was rounding the bases on that.
He was running. And one of the best parts of that cycle is he already has one. I think that was his second cycle of his career. According to a quick Google search that I did the other day. And then I asked. I think it said.
I don't think he does, because they were interviewing him and he said he had an opportunity twice, but didn't get it.
Maybe
because I was listening to the interview. That would be remarkable.
That's what I was really confused, but it said he did with the Diamondbacks. Maybe it was that he was one away. Either way, I mean, you look at both catchers. Miguel Amaya continues to hit. And now you have Carson Kelly who's hitting. So something that was a horrible struggle last year. Maybe at the very end of the season, you'd be like, hey, Amaya's picking it up. Cool. Bethencourt had 2 good games. Cool. So they were okay. They were playable. The duo was playable, I should say. But now, no matter who you put out, Amaya or Kelly, you're going to get some solid offense. You're not getting a Kyle Tucker or a Seiya Suzuki bat, but we're going to get some, we have a chance for at least one hit. It's no longer bases are loaded, we need a big hit, catcher's up, turn the game off. No, they could do this. There's that potential. And even if it's not always results after that, that's exciting.
Well, the funny thing is that Amaya after he had 5 RBIs against the Arizona Diamondbacks, everyone was just throwing their arms up because he wasn't in the lineup the next night. Yeah. And then Carson Kelly goes off and has a cycle, and then everyone's doing the same thing, throwing their arms up because Amaya's not in the lineup. And I just think it's so funny over 162 game season, how you just have to be patient and let everything kind of play out. And it's hard. We as fans, I mean, we report on almost everything that happens and we talk about everything that happens and we get excited about things. And then we get bummed when things don't go real well, but it's important to be able to know and stand back a little bit and just know that things are going to end up working themselves out. And I think, to your point, the Cubs have Miguel Amaya, the Cubs have Carson Kelly, and it sure does feel like the catcher position is much better than it's been for years.
Yeah, well, and that's okay to platoon, like you said. Even I was like, wait, Amaya just had a 5 RBI game. What are we doing? And Amaya's hot. Why are we sitting him? And then you worded it perfectly. It's, why are we sitting Amaya? Kelly does well. Wait, why are we sitting Kelly? Wait, but yesterday you wanted Amaya to hit, and so you have to pick a lane. And I'm guilty of that as well. So no shame on others. That's a great problem to have. If we have so many good hitters that it's like, hey, we can't sit him. No, but you can't sit him either. Yeah, but you can't sit him. This is going to be a pretty good offense if that's the case. And then you get into the pitching, and they were fantastic as well. The team was just clicking on all cylinders, and I get it's the Athletics. I get it was a Mickey Mouse ballpark. That's fine. But the Athletics also aren't a bad team. The Athletics aren't someone like the White Sox.
I don't know, maybe they are.
They might be, but they didn't really lose anybody from last year. If anything, they should have gotten better. You have those players like Max Muncy. He's been doing well. Lawrence Butler, Brent Rooker. He was hitting a home run every at bat. He might hit 50 this year. That would be pretty fun. Lawrence Butler, Luis Severino. I mean, Estes, not great, but then you have Springs. Springs has done well before. Mason Miller. And Mason Miller did fine. Clearly, he's one of the best closers on the planet. But they're not a pushover team, I feel. They're a team that's probably they're lower of the pack, but they're not White Sox or Marlins where it's, yeah, of course you swept them. It would have been embarrassing if you didn't. It's 2 out of 3, but putting on that showcase, I'm still taking a little bit away from that, especially against Luis Severino. That is a good pitcher on a bad team, but that is a really good pitcher. And immediately showed him. First inning, just hitting bombs. And they're really locked in. Maybe it was the batter's eye. Maybe it was the environment. But either way, there's more to take away than just, of course, they beat up on the A's. It was still impressive in its own right.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, just looking across, it wasn't just, a couple of guys. There were some guys that weren't really that present, like Ian Happ, for example, like we were saying. But I mean, if you just look down the line, I mean, Michael Busch did really well. He ended up with how many hits did he end up with? 3 hits and a home run. He didn't play today. Justin Turner ended up with 2 hits and ended up getting an RBI. Nico Horner, quietly 5 hits. Pete Crow-Armstrong, 5 hits. And so, I mean, everyone had a hit. No one didn't have a hit. I mean, Miguel Amaya had only 1 hit, but he only played 1 game. So Justin Turner with 2, Ian Happ with 2. I mean, across the board, 41 total hits over 3 games.
Yeah.
I'll take that any day. And so offensively, the Cubs felt great. I mean, going to Oakland or Sacramento, I'll never get used to saying that.
I get it.
At this time was really good for the Cubs. I think going home is going to be a little different. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes here. But let's talk about pitching. And, it's early and it's always hard to assess where pitchers are so early in the season. Do you have any major concerns? I think there are some things that I am concerned about. But do you see anything that just jumps off the page and you're like, wow, that's a big concern this early?
Eli Morgan is definitely still concerning me. He got out of it today, but first 2 hitters, I think, reached. The first pitch was a double. I mean, it took him 1 pitch, and then I was already like, we're up by 8, but not as comfortable with Eli Morgan. And Justin Steele really worried me yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it worked
out. He bounced back.
He did. He bounced back. And when you look at the box score, it's not a bad outing. 6.2 innings of 4 earned runs is a solid outing. But he gave up 7 hits. And so it's not awful. But there was a lot of worry signs. He was getting the ball absolutely, like the ball was getting crushed off of him. He gave up several home runs. That was kind of a problem earlier in the season. These first 2 starts, it's been, he's giving up the home run ball. He hasn't been a home run pitcher. He's been great at not giving up home runs and keeping the ball lower, which is kind of what you need at Wrigley Field. So that's my one worry sign is he tipping pitches? And I had someone say he only throws 2 pitches. Okay, but he's been fine with it before. So on one hand, yeah, you're not wrong. It's 50-50. But he's also been fine with that before. And he's been able to, he just throws it as hard as he can. And then it creates a third pitch. Like it moves on its own. And so I think he'll be fine. But if there was one like takeaway of negativity from this pitching staff, it was that Steele didn't look too sharp again. He'd already got absolutely shelled in not in LA, against LA in Tokyo. And now it's again minor league ballpark. So don't put too much stock into it, but definitely something to keep an eye on as we move. And he will probably be in the second series at Wrigley Field because he's not pitching the first one, but I would assume he goes first or second game in the next series.
Yeah, my biggest concern with Justin Steele is he's giving up a lot of hard hit contact. And, I'm looking at on StatCast at his hard hit percentage is so far in 2025 is 42%. Last year he was at 33.2%. So that's quite a bit higher. And his exit velocity, average exit velocity right now is 91.1 miles an hour. He's never been over, his highest has been 87.8. So he is giving up a lot of hard contact. And that's the thing that's concerning, to your point, like early in the game yesterday, like he recovered, but boy, man, when he was giving up the hard contact, it was just kind of like, it felt almost like BP. They were really tagging him.
Yeah. Well, and I'm looking at his baseball savant and you can see it's 3 games. So for people that aren't familiar with baseball savant, that's sliders of percentiles. And so you can see how he did last year versus how he did this year. 3 games, the percentiles aren't going to be great just due to portion and sample size. But it's not great. Last year, it was a lot of red. He was a very solid pitcher. This year, it's a lot of blue. This year, it's a lot of blue. The one thing that hasn't changed is fastball velocity. That's only average fastball velocity is only down 0.5 miles an hour. So it's not a, oh my gosh, is he hurt? His velocity's bad. I'm not worried about that. But there's still some concerns there about he's getting the ball, like you said, he's getting tagged. That's what Evan used that word on Sunday when we were talking about the Eli Morgan outing. And I haven't heard that word in a long time to describe hits off a pitcher, but he said the balls were getting tagged. Exactly. I mean, every single hit was, even if it was caught by Dansby Swanson, there was one, or Ian Happ with caught one, it destroyed. The exit velocity was off the charts. And so you worry, okay, but what about if their launch angle changes a little bit? Like, we got to get that exit velocity down before it causes some serious issues.
Well, his slider is getting roped.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. The batting average against his slider in 2024 was 160. The batting average so far against his slider in 2025 is 389. And that's by far the biggest difference that I'm seeing when I'm looking at his pitch type. Man, but that is a huge difference. And let's see that the exit velocity is about the same. They're just getting more hits off of it. And he's not getting nearly the whiffs.
And that's where you wonder, is it the stuff hasn't changed? Are they just reading it better? Is he tipping his pitches? Yeah. Which again, he doesn't have, it's not like Yu Darvish where, oh my gosh, he has 6 pitches. If they know what's coming, like that is one of his best parts. One of his best aspects of Yu Darvish's game is he has like 85 pitches. It doesn't matter what you think he's going to throw. He can throw something else. He has one of the biggest arsenals we've ever seen. Justin Steele doesn't. So if you walk on, if he has a bad game with his fastball, if his slider's a little bit off, look out, he's going to get rocked. And that's what we saw in Oakland. He settled in. Again, the box score makes it look fine. But for those of us like you and I, we were texting about it in the group chat. And we're like, Steele does not look good. He was, whether it was getting tagged or he couldn't hit his spot, it was clear that he was off.
And so again, 3 games, you don't want to overreact or whatever. It's when things heat up as the weather warms up, typically things change for pitchers, for batters, for everybody. And so it's just something to keep an eye on. And hopefully he comes out and has a more dominant performance in his next start, but we'll see. I thought Ben Brown has looked really good. Like, I'm very encouraged about Ben Brown. Jamison Taillon looked better today. Still hasn't looked great, but he feels a lot more like 2023 Jamison Taillon than he does 2024 Jamison Taillon. And go ahead.
I wanted to focus on Ben Brown just for a second. He has, his ERA 5.87 doesn't look great. That's also because he came in Tokyo and he gave up a few runs, so that's automatically going to hurt him. But Ben Brown is the best 5th starter option that we have at this point in time. So if you don't like him, deal with it, because he's going to be the 5th starter for a while. But that death ball is nasty. He has to get a third pitch. He has to get that third pitch, the changeup. He was working on it all spring. That was the plan all offseason was, okay, it's going to be him and Colin Ray. Feels like Brown really had the upside and like, okay, but Brown, you're going to be the 5th starter unless you just are absolutely horrible in the spring. But that changeup didn't develop probably like they were hoping. It didn't develop like I was hoping. If he has a third pitch, he could be a 3 on this roster because of the velocity. The Cubs have no hard throwing pitchers. His fastball average is 95.3. He has a curve at 85.5 and a change at 91.3. A 91.3 mile an hour changeup. We saw the same thing with Brad Keller today through a changeup of 92 miles an hour. We'll get to Brad Keller in a bit, but if you can really hit 96, 97 on a good fastball and then have a changeup at 92, that's dangerous. And he's a starter. So that's the thing is, if you can get him to go 5 innings every game, I'm not saying, hey, go 7, go 8 innings like I would ask out of some of these other guys like Taillon, like Steele, like Imanaga. But if you can give us 5 innings and then have someone like Brad Keller, just piggyback off of him. If you can give me Brown, Keller, and then maybe a Merriweather Presley, that wins a lot of ball games. Like, because you can have Keller go 2 to 3 innings too. Keller only went 1 today because they probably want him to have high leverage in against San Diego. Otherwise, there's no reason to not have Keller go 2 to 3 innings today. And then again, low leverage to get Morgan and Pearson, and Morgan still got shelled even in low leverage. But I mean, I would have loved for him to go longer. I understand they're saving him, but a Brown Keller piggyback option is really intriguing as we move forward in this season.
Yes, absolutely. I love those guys. And I think as you go down further, just to touch on, obviously, Shota Imanaga, I mean, to me, he's the number one pitcher on the Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
And then Matt Boyd looked really good in his one outing. And so that was encouraging. As you go into the bullpen a little bit more, I mean, obviously what happened on Sunday was a disaster.
Yeah.
Caleb Thielbar and Ryan Presley don't make me feel really great. Nate Pearson doesn't make me feel really great. Eli Morgan doesn't make me feel really great. Like, I've got some serious concerns about this bullpen for good reason. And I don't think this is one of those situations where we would say, oh, hey, wait, it's too early. I mean, to me, I'm saying, hey, it's early enough to fix this.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Exactly. And this is another thing that I talked with Evan about on the rant last Sunday as we recapped the Diamondback series. The urgency hasn't been there for Craig Counsell and Jed Hoyer in the past. Whether it's signing someone like Tanner Scott, would be really cool if we had Tanner Scott right now. Or in the offseason, the urgency isn't there. Last year, it was, hey, this pitcher's looked really bad these last few weeks. We need to move on. Yeah, but let's give him a few more tries. The leashes have been too long. We need to be able to see from this front office that if Eli Morgan has 2 more bad outings, or if Nate Pearson has 2 more bad outings, you're going to Iowa. It's not he has no more options left. We have to keep him, please. We have to keep him just to make sure. But what if he's good? What if he's good? No, cut the leash, get rid of him, or send him down. Figure something out to get somebody else up, because we have Cade Horton. He's starting in Iowa tomorrow, which should be fun. It's an off day. Should be a really fun day to watch the Iowa Cubs tomorrow. We have Riley Martin. You have Daniel Palencia. How is he not on this major league roster yet, especially after the early bullpen performance? Either way, like you said, we got to be ready to pounce. And if something isn't working, fix it fast. We don't have all season, because you could argue that's what cost us last year. I know we missed the playoffs by a lot of games, but what if we had moved on from Neris to the closer position 2 weeks earlier? Because about 6 games in, I think all the fans realized this is not going to happen. Like, this is not going to work. The Cubs gave him 20 more games, or whatever, hyperbole, but their leash was too long. They were too not kind, but they were too willing to test it and be a little risky there. No, get the sure thing. If Presley, for example, people were wanting Presley executed after game 1. I mean, this fan base wanted Presley on death row.
He hasn't looked great. I mean, to be honest, like, he doesn't look like a shutdown closer to me. Yeah. I really think it's going to be Hodge in there before long.
Yes, I think it will. He hasn't blown a save. So the fans, and not you or anything, but I even said this the other day. I'm like, guys, calm down on Presley. We're 2 games in. But if he has 4 more outings where it's like, okay, he got out of it, but he had the bases loaded again, or like Neris last year, even when he got out of it, odds are the bases were loaded.
I can't relive that.
Yeah, exactly. Even if he got out of it, odds are the bases were loaded, or he had a lucky play where that ball was hit 200 miles an hour right at somebody. He's lucky that wasn't a home run. Then you need to move on. But for now, I think Presley's going to be fine. He knows what he's doing. He's not Hector Neris. But again, you got to be ready. If this happens 3-4 more times, cut the leash. Switch them, even for a few games. Switch them and give Porter Hodge that experience. He's been the best person in this bullpen by far. I mean, Demon Hodge, he's been fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, talking about Iowa, there are a lot of good options there with Wicks, with Palencia. Assad, I'm not sure what the status of Assad is, but I assume he'll be back shortly. I didn't sense that was a severe injury.
Not severe, but he hasn't started a rehab assignment, especially as a starter. I would expect a rehab assignment first. So he's not on the 60-day. Like Brandon Birdsell, I don't even know when we're going to see him, which is kind of sad because he's really fun to watch and great guy, but also he was one of the depth options that it's okay if a Ben Brown, if a Tyone gets hurt, we have Brandon Birdsell waiting in the wings. No, we don't. We have Javier Assad waiting in the wings. No, we don't. Okay, we have Colin Ray. No one wants Colin Ray to start games. So no one does. But yeah, we haven't heard anything on Assad. I have to expect, especially as a starter, you would want some rehab games in there with the minor league season started, probably 1 or 2 games at least. But he hasn't even started those. So I'm thinking late April.
I'm looking down this list though, and you got Brandon Hughes, who I'd forgotten about, Caleb Killian, who feels like he's kind of going to get his last opportunity probably here sometime this year. Luke Little, obviously, I think he was dealing with an injury. I don't know if he's pitched yet. I mean, there's definitely Ethan Roberts. Keegan Thompson is back with the team. So there are some guys that they can shuttle up, I guess is my point. And it feels like they're viable options, particularly given what we've seen out of this bullpen just in these first few games.
For sure. And they didn't give up a single run this series. Again, I know it's the Athletics, but the Athletics have some good guys. JJ Baudet is someone I didn't even mention earlier. This Oakland offense, they were close to over 500 in the second half of the season last year. Didn't really lose anybody. Brent Rooker and Lawrence Butler got extended. So some fun things happening in Oakland, and this bullpen shut him down. This bullpen was absolutely incredible. Demon Brad Keller was amazing. He touched 99 on the radar gun multiple times. He averaged 98. He has some heat. And again, that changed up at 92. He has the slider. Like, I've heard nothing but rave reviews from people around the game that have been like, after every outing, I get at least one message. It's like, wait, Brad Keller just did that? He had kind of fallen off everybody's radars, no pun intended. And then all of a sudden, he's blowing it in the zone past really good hitters, whether it's on the A's or in spring training. I mean, he did it against the Braves. Matt Olson, there was one strikeout that really stuck out to me that everyone was like, wait, he made Matt Olson look like a fool. And Matt Olson's one of the best first basemen in the game. So he's somebody that I think could be an X factor for this team. And then you look and you have a Porter Hodge. You have a Nate Pearson who has potential. He just has to figure it out. But I do think he has serious potential. Eli Morgan is another one that's really worrying me. But the potential on this bullpen is fantastic. It's just there's a lot of red flags. Pearson, Morgan, Thielbar can't find the zone to save his life. So there's a lot of warnings, but at least Brad Keller has looked really solid along with Presley and Hodge. Presley's a little, he's been a little risky, but he's gotten the results, which is what matters.
And so, feeling good. Feeling about as good as you possibly can. Cubs solidly in second place. Have the Cardinals played today yet?
Yes, the Cardinals won. The Cardinals,
so won. Okay.
Ivan Herrera hit 3 home runs.
The Cardinals doing this thing.
It's the devil. It's the devil magic.
It's devil magic.
So yeah, it was unfortunate for Angels fans. Logan O'Hoppe had a grand slam to take the lead, and then very quickly Cardinals had a 7-run 8th inning. So the Cardinals scored 9 runs unanswered to win 12-5. So they're still at the top of the division, but like we said earlier, I don't expect that to last long. It's part of me is because I really dislike the Cardinals, but also, they don't have the talent. Mason Wynn, I don't even know if he has a hit this season. So you have Mason Wynn who doesn't have a hit. It's just really worries me that rotation can't stand up to the test of time. Sonny Gray's really their only good starter. You have Quinn Matthews coming up, so that's exciting, but I don't think they're going to do well. And the Brewers are getting rocked. I mean, the Brewers are getting the living daylights hit out of them. Whether it's, it's incredible. Oh, it's amazing. I don't know if you were watching the Brewers game today at all, but
no, God, no.
Okay, well, I was paying attention to it because I had the Royals to win, and they did not. But it was the 10th inning, and it was 10th inning. Royals had already scored to lead 2-1. Brewers tied it on the first pitch or first at bat of the inning. Cool, whatever. The Brewers had bases loaded, nobody out. So they needed a sac fly to win the game. 3 straight went down in order, and they had to go to the 11th inning, which they won. But it's also really funny that you couldn't get a guy 90 feet with the bases loaded and nobody out. It was like strikeout, pop out, pop out. So they won the game, but it looked really ugly. And they've looked bad. I mean, they've looked bad. They don't have the pitching, it appears. And you're facing the Yankees and these torpedo bats. You know, you're going to give up some runs. But still, Brewers have looked bad. The Reds have gotten shut out 1-0 back-to-back days against the Rangers. The Pirates got walked off 3 times in the first series. In the opening series,
That's rough.
they got walked off 3 times. One of them was a walk-off wild pitch. I mean, vibes are bad in Pirates land. Sure, you have Paul Skeens, but does it really matter? No. They should trade him and get some fun value. That would be interesting. But other than Paul Skeens, you don't really have anybody on that. Mitch Keller. And that rotation, Blake and I were talking about it last week, and I don't mean to go too far away from the Cubs, but it's a division opponent, so it counts. But that rotation could be really fun, and there's someone that you should worry about pitching-wise, because you have Paul Skeens, you'll have Jared Jones if he doesn't need severe surgery, Brad Keller, and then you're going to have Bubba Chandler, which, really fun
Brad
name.
Keller, not Brad Keller.
Mitch Keller. And then
Bubba you just
Chandler.
love Brad Keller so much. Every opportunity you get to say his name, you have to take it.
Brad Keller has not been traded to the Pirates. God, I would be so angry. And then you have Bubba Chandler who's coming up. So that's another fun option. The Pirates rotation could be really scary when healthy. It's not going to be healthy because that team's a mess and they have no offense. So you're quickly seeing the Cubs.
It's winnable.
It's the Cubs division to lose. I think the Brewers will come back. The Brewers are too gritty of a team to not put up a fight. The Cardinals will probably be third in this division, but the Reds don't really have anybody other than Ellie De La Cruz. They don't really have anyone. So it's only a weekend. I don't want to overreact, but the division looks horrible. And I think we knew this. I think we knew the division would be pretty bad, but it's just, man, this division is garbage, which is kind of funny to watch.
Well, the Cubs play at home. Their Wrigley Field home opener is on Friday. You're going to be there?
Yes, I will be at all 3 games. All 3 games at Wrigley this weekend.
I'm jealous. I will have to admit that. And they go up against the Padres, who are 7-0 and are red hot, boy. And so it's going to be an interesting series. Obviously, it's the forecast is like cold, like in the 40s, I think, for the entire series.
Yes,
and maybe some rain. Who knows?
It's supposed to rain on Friday. Which when I went to the Cardinals game on Saturday, I'm like, okay, it was 60s, gorgeous weather, a little humid, but I'm like, hey, maybe it's getting warmer this spring. Maybe we're going to be in the clear for next weekend. And then I look, and I told my dad later, and he's like, are you dumb? He's like, Jacob, I've raised you better than this. It's always cold opening weekend. And I look at the weather. Sure enough, it's going to be awful. It's going to be 40s, I think, a high of like 48 with rain and a lot of wind. So an opening weekend at Wrigley. But you could say, are the Padres used to it? Probably not. They're in San Diego right now, beating the living daylights out of the Guardians. So it's probably pretty nice in San Diego. Are they going to be able to deal with the 40-degree Chicago weather? I don't know.
Exactly. That's a good point. And so that should impact them. I mean, really what's carrying the Padres right now is their pitching. Their pitching has been completely dominant.
We face nobody.
They have a 1.57 team ERA, which is just crazy. I mean, and so, they've given up, how many runs have they given up? Let's see if it says it here. 11. They've given up 11 runs over 7 games. That's just ridiculous. That's not going to continue, obviously.
And Jackson Merrill. I mean, you extended Jackson Merrill, and that was the most obvious home run pick of my lifetime, and I didn't pick it. But Jackson Merrill got extended today, and he had a home run. So the offense is hot. Not that we don't face anyone good, but Randy Vasquez, he pitched against us in the spring. That's it. I've never really heard of that guy before. He faces
so
Imanaga.
He goes Friday against Imanaga.
Mm-hmm. Nick Pivetta, who I'm still really frustrated we didn't sign because they signed him for like 2 cents. But again, Cubs are cheap, breaking even, whatever, got to pay for Colin Ray. So Nick Pivetta will face Matthew Boyd, and then Kyle Hart against Ben Brown. Nick Pivetta is really the only one that scares me. And I say this, and we'll get shut out because I'm a jinx to anything that I encounter. But we don't have to face Cease or King. So I think that's a really positive sign. We don't have to face either of the two best pitchers on this Padres staff, and they get to face two of our three best pitchers, which is a really good sign.
Yeah. And on Sunday, it's Kyle Hart for the Padres going up against Ben Brown. So yeah, I mean, I'm feeling good about those matchups. I'm also feeling good about the fact that there's probably not going to be a lot of offense in these games with the temperatures being in the 40s, but who knows, with the wind, and I'm guessing the wind is going to be blowing off the lake.
Yeah, and it always is. Always.
We had these games here in Oakland where we were multiple home runs in every single game. And it was just like, you and I are like going back and forth on this stuff and on the group chat and everything like that. And I get the sense that perhaps we're not going to see, quite as many runs over these next few games for the Cubs. And then they play the Rangers coming up after that. And there's no pitching assignments for that yet. But, you're going to see Steele obviously in that series.
You'll have Steele and Tyone go, and that's probably Steele, Tyone, Imanaga in that series.
Yeah, probably. And so I mean, coming up on the Padres series, like, what are your keys, you think, to bringing this series home for the Cubs? Winning 2 or 3.
Yeah, first key is to win. That would be pretty fun. Take that fan energy, because Wrigley is going to be electric. PCA even talked about it after the game. He's like, I can't wait to get to Wrigley. All of these people, I don't think Cubs fans fully understand the effect Wrigley has. Like I said, Busch Stadium was empty. There was 15,000 people there on the second game of the season. That's pathetic. And it was nice weather. It's not even like, it was like 30 degrees out.
Did you say 15,000?
The announced attendance was 30,000. Not a shot. Gotcha. There was 30. 15 to 20,000, and people were leaving pretty early too, even though the Cardinals were winning. So every single player that I have, whether I've talked to them, whether they've said it publicly, has said, dude, Wrigley is a different beast. Cubs and opposing players. I talked to Matt Carpenter at the winter meetings this year, and I was like, why did you always hit so well against the Cubs? And he's like, I love playing at Wrigley. But he said it's hard because the fans are so loud no matter what. The White Sox, it's the White Sox, but they didn't have any fans. Someone posted a picture of Busch Stadium yesterday, and it was empty. And they said, how are we supposed to get our players to feel that adrenaline? They talked about it on the marquee broadcast the other day. They were like, and in spring training, they said their velocity is a little down, but that's okay. Once they get into real game, the adrenaline will kick in. How are you getting adrenaline when there's 3 fans and when there's more beer vendors than fans at Busch Stadium? You're not. So I don't mean to bash on Busch Stadium all the time, but the attendance is it's insane how they're boycotting, and it's kind of showing the lowest attendance in Busch Stadium history. But Wrigley is a different animal. It's loud. You have to harness that. You have to realize, hey, the Padres aren't used to playing in this weather. They're not used to the wind blowing in. So the Cubs have to realize, hit the ball on the ground, hit some line drives. Don't hit for home runs. If it happens, cool. But hit it on the ground, hit some line drives over the infield. And yeah, really we don't face any of their good pitchers. So tee off, get the pitchers out early, and work that bullpen. Because they have a solid bullpen, work the bullpen. That's probably my biggest key, is get to the bullpen.
Exactly. I agree. I think the Cubs have the potential to scratch out some runs here without getting a lot of home runs. They're the type of team, and when you look at like guys like PCA and Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson, I mean, these are guys who can put the ball in play, and just kind of keep the line moving. And so that's what I'm going to look for in this series from the Cubs, is their ability to scratch out runs and win close games. And I'm going to look to see Ryan Presley and to see how he looks in a real save opportunity in a 1 or 2 run game, because I think we're going to see that happen. and boy, I hope it all goes well. And if it doesn't, I'll feel good that Porter Hodge is there waiting in the wings, because I think Porter Hodge is going to be more than capable of stepping into that position. But I will say, then what do you do with Ryan Presley if he's not capable of closing games? I guess he becomes a late inning, 1 inning type of reliever guy.
Yeah, I think you'd probably switch them. And Presley accepted the trade to the Cubs. Like, this was not the Cubs and Hoyer and Dana Brown, they fixed up the trade. They made sure the details worked. There weren't much details. It was more just, hey, Cubs, you want Ryan Presley? We'll pay for most of his salary. Yeah, sure, cool. Here he is. Presley and his family said, yes, we want to come to Chicago. So he's taken on this challenge. He's bet on himself. He's gone out of his comfort zone of Houston, where he's been and where he's had the most success he's one of the best playoff relievers of all time. So like you said, it's not a bad thing that we have Porter Hodge in the wings, because not all teams do. Some teams are like, if our closer's cooked, we're cooked. No, we have Porter Hodge. We can put Presley in the 8th inning. He did it last year with Hader. He doesn't want to, and we don't want him to. Ideally, we have Porter Hodge in the 8th, and then if Presley is ever down because he's pitched to get too much, okay, cool, throw Hodge in there. We have 2 closers. That's a good problem to have. Dodgers, the Dodgers have like 85 closers, let's be honest.
Yeah, they do. There's no shortage of guys there.
No, there's no shortage, but they have Kirby Yates and Tanner Scott, so they can do the same thing, a little better, albeit, but having 2 closers is really valuable, which is why I'm not too worried about Presley, because we can give him the days off if needed, because he's getting older, and we have Porter Hodge. No worries or concerns there. Demon Hodge.
Yep, I agree. Well, it's going to be a fun series. I'm excited to watch the games at Wrigley. I know you're excited to be at Wrigley.
I can't wait. I'm going to be the bleachers. I can't wait.
Where are you sitting? You're in left field, right?
Yeah. So actually, I'm in the bleachers for the last game. First game, I'm in the 300s. Second game, I'm along the third baseline, down on the first level, and then third game, I'm in the bleachers, left field, probably front row. But left field all the way. I've never sat anywhere else in the bleachers. Never will.
Okay. All right.
Unless it's like Ohtani versus Kyle Tucker. If it's like an Ohtani Kyle Tucker, I'd maybe sit in right. But otherwise, because I remember when Ohtani, it is. But when I was at the Dodgers games last year, it was okay. Dodgers Cubs. Okay, we have Ian Happ, Cody Bellinger, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani. Right field was packed. Like, everybody went to right field because they wanted to catch a home run. So I'd consider it if I saw Ohtani again, but other than that, there's no reason to go over to those hooligans.
All right. That's a good note to end it on. Be sure to check out all of our socials, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all the good things. Check out CubsInsider.com. And thanks for joining us. It's been real. It's been fun. Been real fun.
It'll be even better when we sweep the Padres. Who says no?
Not me. All right. See ya.